Many arguments are pointless. Is the earth round or flat? Pointless argument. The answer is clear and has been clear for millennia. Do human beings have free will or are they determined? Also a pointless argument. The answer is clear and has been clear for millennia. People fall into pointless arguments for several reasons, usually because their ego and preconceptions get in the way of their critical thinking. Even when ego isn't involved, sadly, most people choose to be lazy thinkers, accepting simplistic answers. Some people use pointless arguments to push an ideology and dominate other people. The pointless argument of free will versus determinism is perpetuated by all of those causes. The good news is that clear critical thinking dissolves the argument fairly quickly. To begin, let's clear up the issue by looking at the two extremes of the argument: determinism and you create your own reality. First off, determinism. The ancient Western assumption that everything that happened had to be part of a grand teleology, a designed and purposeful universe, led to so many errors of thought. When we let go of that assumption of teleology and its dread consequence of determinism, human experience makes more sense and real possibilities for meaning can begin. To illustrate, here's a brief history of the assumption of determinism. Ancient Greeks thought that fate dictated all that would happen in the world. They wrote poems and plays about how people were unable to escape their predetermined fate. Aristotle stated that all events were results of a chain of causation that began with the first cause. Plotinus, extending the ideas of Plato, taught that everything was the result of emanations from the One, the source of everything that exists. The Roman Stoics perpetuated the idea of fate, thought that Logos, the divine source of reason, had a rational plan that dictated all that would happen in the world. The medieval Catholic Church largely adopted the pagan assumption of determinism, connecting the concepts of Logos and the One with the Jewish concept of an all-seeing, all-knowing, all-powerful God identical with Aristotle's first cause. Augustine was one of the few medieval scholars who acknowledged the reality of human free will, correctly observing that God's knowledge of our choices doesn't mean we don't choose. He was way ahead of his time. Thomas Aquinas codified Aristotle's version of determinism as a chain of causation begun by God and extending to all events in the world. Protestants, Martin Luther and John Calvin, also adopted determinism, assuming that human free will was incompatible with their concept of an omnipotent, controlling God. Remember that these thinkers in medieval and early modern Christianity did not see God as loving and knowable. Theirs was a deity of dispassionate rationality, the source of all order. Western scientists may have broken with the Church, but they remained within the Western teleological paradigm. Newtonian mechanics continued the assumption of a chain of causation that determined all events. Some scientists kept God as the architect of the chain of causation. Others recast the all-controlling rational deity as the laws of physics. Despite the tantalizing evidence of quantum physics, most scientists persist within the ancient religious paradigm of a teleological, determined universe. Thus, they commit to determinism as their worldview. Now, here's the thing. This is important. No one believes they lack free will. No one thinks, feels, or believes that they don't have free will. Well, except maybe a few young people who've read too much Camus and too many underground graphic novels, but they have deeper issues. The assumption of determinism is always directed at others, choosing to believe that other people lack free will. Determinism is an ancient theory that attempted to explain the world and its seeming order. The ancient Stoics put determinism at the heart of their cosmology, resulting in a fatalistic quietism. But even within the Stoic teaching, they denied agency to everything else. The Stoics couldn't bring themselves to deny their own internal free will to choose to either accept or reject the idea of determinism. That's because no one, even the theoretically committed determinist, says, I am determined. No, they say, you are determined. To be brutally honest, those who advocate determinism are saying to other people, you have no control over your life. And you don't even have control over your thoughts. There's a word for that kind of talk: gaslighting. There are even better terms for it: abuse and manipulation. When someone says other people lack free will, they say those people are incapable of being a cause. It's more than denying free will, it's denying that other people have any input into their lives. A person with nefarious intent can deceive others into accepting the gaslighting of determinism and make those others more amenable to abuse and manipulation. A declaration that you have no choice so often accompanies the abuser's actions. Advocating determinism is a form of abuse. Period. Okay, enough beating the dead horse of determinism. It is not the only extreme position in this pointless argument. The opposite extreme, which is equally absurd, is the theory that you can create your own reality. Do you have free will? Undeniably. Are you an agent capable of acting on your free will? Yes. Do you create your own reality? No, that's more fantasy than reality. The extremism of determinism ignores a chunk of reality to maintain its theory. The extremism of you create your own reality, which, for lack of a better term, I will call fantasism, also ignores a chunk of reality to maintain its fantasy. Determinism is the domain of scientism and fundamentalist religion. Fantasism is the domain of fluffpreneurs and fake gurus. There are two types of fantasism. First, strong fantasism. A radical but common version of fantasism pushed by fake gurus is the claim that material objects aren't things, they are possible movements of your consciousness. Therefore, by altering your consciousness, you can alter the objects around you. I'm choosing among possible movements of consciousness to bring my actual experiences into manifestation, said one self-proclaimed guru, who I will refuse to name. Such pronouncements are frequent from fake gurus who present them as facts but never demonstrate their veracity. The world isn't out there independent of our experience, but is rather a product of your thinking. Thus, or so the fantasy says, you can manifest what you want. You create your own reality. I'm a defender of George Berkeley's contention that we can't prove that what we assume to be material objects are actually material. His argument is undeniably valid, even though it says more about human limitations than the nature of reality. But Berkeley was never so deluded as to deny that there is a reality entirely independent of our thinking and willing. The vase on the shelf may not be made of matter, but you can't make it disappear by thinking it away. Even Hogwarts doesn't teach you you can just think something into or out of being. It teaches you how to enact spells, that is, take the right tool to perform an appropriate action. That's why the you create your own reality extreme is fantasism, not belief in magic. Then there's weak fantasism. A less radical version of fantasism is called manifesting. It's the subject of fluffpreneurs and their new age books, daytime talk shows, and YouTube videos. Its teaching is not that you create reality with your thoughts, but that you can alter it with your thoughts and intentions. If you want money, love, fame, world peace, whatever, you simply will it to be, and it will happen. Oprah and the book The Secret taught that you just write down what you want and you will manifest it. So I'm going to think really earnestly that every one of my readers and listeners will click on the link in the description and follow the directions on how to send me money. Go on. Go down, click the link. Go on. I'm manifesting money. I'm creating my own reality. You are sending me money right now. Your action is a movement of my consciousness. What? You didn't fork over some cash? Huh. Well, you proved that you are not a determined being, but instead have free will. Or maybe I failed to take one of the Fluffpreneur's expensive courses on how to manifest. It's all pretty much a scam, but people do fall for it. Strangely, though, still no money from that link here. Manifesting must take a while. The Fluffpreneurs will say, I need to take another course from them on how to do it. Whether in its strong or weak forms, fantasism is easily seen as absurd. A person once told me with a supreme air of confidence that while driving to a place, she manifests an open parking space in front of the building, and it's open when she arrives. I replied, with as much politeness as I could muster, well, what if I manifest the same parking space? I received no answer. The reality is, we can't both manifest the same parking space. Our thoughts don't determine reality. What's more, if everyone creates their own reality, how do we agree on what is true? For example, if one person says climate change is real and another denies it, whose reality matters? Who's going to manifest whether climate change is real or not? That is a great question that gets to the core of so many problems we face. Everyone is a unique individual with a unique set of experiences and perspectives. Johann Gottlieb Fichte, one of the first to rebel against the ancient dogma of determinism, was correct that everyone, because they experience and respond to their experiences differently, creates their own realities. As later philosophers clarified, those realities affect how the individual person perceives the greater independent reality, but does not alter that larger reality. One could say that there are different spheres of reality, as Kierkegaard and Nietzsche implied. A reality independent of all people and of each individual person's set of experiences and choices. Climate change is real, regardless of what any person believes, and that reality matters most of all. But each person can, because they have free will, deny that reality, that denial creating a personal reality in conflict with the rest of reality. How we deal with all of the individual realities is through conversation and mutual decision-making. Charles Sanders Peirce talked about the importance of collective decision-making that combines our individual experiences and perspectives into a more accurate understanding. Even collectively, we don't create our reality, but together we can better understand and shape it. That's all the mental power of creating your reality entails, changing your perspective. If that perspective becomes disconnected from the rest of reality, the creation will eventually prove to be counterproductive. You want some more proofs of free will? Great, super. That we are able to consider the question of free will versus determinism proves that we have free will. We could not even ask the question if we were determined. There would be no reason or cause for doubt, no reason or cause to even consider the question. One theory offered as a defense of determinism is that free will is an illusion, though who is having the illusion and how is never explained. A common version of this theory says that there's an evolutionary advantage to the trait of believing one has free will. Well, if that were the case, why wouldn't such a trait show up in other animals? Every other organism flies, swims, trudges, crawls, or oozes through life without free will, a trait that they do not have and do not need. It would seem that free will would be an evolutionary disadvantage, as evidenced by the doubts and anxieties that plague humankind. The lesser organisms simply act, determined as they are to do so. Humans, though, have to consider their options, are aware that they have choices, are aware that they are capable of making decisions on behalf of various motives, can have various motives, can be utterly mistaken, and are aware that their actions will have consequences. That last one, we're aware that our actions will have consequences, is the most important proof of free will. As William James argued, we are capable of looking back, regretting our actions, and willing to do other than we had done. We all know that we could have chosen differently than we did, and that we can choose to act differently in the future. Because we have free will, we can contemplate the reality of climate change. We can then consider our past actions that contributed to it, contemplate what our options are, and choose what we want to do about it. We are not helpless in the face of a teleological determined universe. No other species has this set of capabilities that come from free will. Rabbits do not contemplate that maybe they are overbreeding and should act differently for their own good. Beavers don't consider the effects their dam has on the surrounding terrain and the organisms in it. And beavers don't contemplate what their options are. More importantly, rabbits and beavers can't choose what's important to them. We humans can value things, and we can choose what we value. Sure, there are basic human tendencies, but that's all they are, tendencies. Individual people can and do freely choose to follow or not follow basic human tendencies. We are Homo sapiens, the species with free will. We can conceptualize beyond our immediate experience. We can plan for the future, choosing our path to create a better or worse life. Because we are the only species with free will, we are the only species that can destroy our own homes. Talk about an evolutionary disadvantage. Because we have free will, we can ask whether or not we have free will. Because we have free will, we can deny the reality of free will, for others, of course, never for ourselves. That we can try to deny free will is proof that we have free will. No other organism can ask the question about or deny the reality of free will. It is our human gift and burden. Oh, and briefly, another defense of determinism is to argue that we are free to act on our will, but our will is determined. This sophistry tries to evade the reality of free will by moving the goalposts. It is still begging the question, assuming determinism, and that we can never, ever choose a different set of values and worldviews. The same arguments proving free will refute this rhetorical subterfuge. We are causes and agents, and that includes the ability and freedom to choose what we will, and we do all the time. There is, though, a fertile middle ground. Determinism is incorrect, and fantasyism is incorrect. Between those two extremes is reality. It's actually kind of amazing how useful it can be to identify the extreme positions on any question, which points you to the best answer. Aristotle was correct about the usefulness of that strategy. The middle ground is this. We are affected by events. It is foolish to think otherwise. But we have free will to react as we choose to those events. It is foolish to think otherwise. We have basic human tendencies, but we can freely choose whether or not to follow those basic human tendencies. Society tells us what to value, but we freely choose to follow or not follow what society tells us. We are embedded in a world that is largely beyond our control. We certainly can't wish things into or out of existence. To navigate this world and find our way through the uncertainties within the world, we need to develop strategies that succeed in getting for us what we want. After we decide what we want, of course. We can't control the world, but we can affect events within it. Each one of us is an agent, a cause that chooses and acts. We aren't determined unless we choose to give up control. And we don't determine. We are influenced, and we can influence. We are aware, can consider, can make plans, and can act on our plans. We can also intend, and that is a power the determinists want to deny to others. We can resolve to change our circumstances, the power of our willful intentions changing ourselves, our perceptions, and our actions to effect change in the world. Intention is not the fluff of fantasism. It is purpose, resolve. It is the power of human free will, the power that scares people. Every step of the way, we make choices. We are, as Kierkegaard said, beings who must choose and act. Within limits, we have freedom. You have the freedom to make choices and decide whether or not to act on those choices. And if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice.